Hey, Sabs, are any of the people that asked those questions in the chat yet?
Nope, not yet.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and let Radley ask his question then. What you got for us, sir?
Hey, Will. So I have a flow execution extension, and part of that, the flow that uses that data structure, it has an approval process and it has a close process. At the very end of the workflow, when everything's all done, approved, and closed, I create a report, a PDF report, and I email that out to a group of users. One of the things they want to see on that is the person and time of the approval and the close step. Now in the process view, right, when you go into that instance of the entity structure, right, the process view, you see all the different states and when things were done, who they were done by. I just don't see how to access that timestamp and user stamp in the workflow.
Yeah, great question. You want to fetch, those are assignments, possibly comments.
Okay.
So if let me create a new folder here. What's today? 3/27. Let me fix something really quick. Just a minute here. Okay, and like if I go and create a flow here, like let's assume this is like your flow that's going to build up your document or something.
Right.
So if you fetched assignments, now you have two options. Probably what you want to do though is fetch them by their folder ID. So if you look in that folder, the assignments are being deposited into that folder. And if they're not, they can be by specifying the assignments folder ID. You could data fetch criteria here for entity folder ID. And then if you give that value, the parent folder ID, your process folder, like your set up, new process folder ID, this will give you back all of the assignments in that folder. Okay. And then you could order these, on, so sort field might be created date, right? And you might do them ascending or descending. And then you have a list of assignments for that particular process. And the assignment object, if you were to look at that, gives you all the information you're seeing in the activity view. So if we look at any results first, just to look at one, you can see the completed by value, right? You can see the completed on, completed by, you can see completed result, you can see it was completed date time, or you could see the state,
nice.
The state there that it's completed. Yeah. So the assignment holds all that information that you're looking for.
Okay, very good. And that was a fetch and then type of assignment. Okay, awesome, very good.
All right, you bet. Yeah, absolutely, happy to help. All right, so I have a question here. The file is encrypted with the step encrypt file and sent through an email. Can we decrypt the file without the decrypt file step? The user will only have the private key. How to decrypt the file? Is there any other step to encrypt the file to share and the user can use the key and access the data? If I would just look at doing PDFs and doing like, I'd probably just do a set PDF password or set PDF password advanced if you want to have more control over it. And this would let you apply a password to the document that you attach to your email. I know this user's not in the call right now, but if you need to just put some protection on a file that you're attaching to an email, I'd probably just convert that file to a PDF using maybe one of our convert steps. If it's not a PDF, I think we have a convert document step, assuming I would spell this correctly. Convert document, and on convert document, you could pick from Word to PDF, and then you could get a PDF and you could pass that into the set PDF password step, apply a custom password, and then you could provide that password to the user, to the person who's getting that PDF in some way. That way you can apply some kind of security to a document and not figure out how to have them do a decrypt file step on receipt of the file. So that user's not here to answer or respond, so I'll just leave it at that. I think using converting documents to PDFs and then you set PDF password steps is probably a better pattern to use to apply security to documents being emailed to and from people. Here's another question. I have an approve button on the email. It works fine everywhere except when I use the email template in a user action. Is there any way to get approve button in the email without setting up whole assignment? Is this, Sabs, is this from one of our people that is in the chat?
Yep, I've unmuted.
Ah, okay, this is from Manal.
Yeah.
Hey, Manal.
Hi, how are you? Quick question. So I have just a email template that we use everywhere in the flow.
Yeah.
But we also have a user action called resend email. So they just like, you just click on that button and then it goes to the whoever you're sending to, and then it just gives them an acknowledge button. I wish I could show it to you. It's just like whenever like we use it, it shows has like nothing, like that button just doesn't work. And it's literally like the task button where they can say acknowledge or like approve, like for example, approve the form or reject the form.
So
But
you're
through the
you're
button.
embedding like an approve or deny link in the email?
Yes.
Okay. I could let you share your screen really quick if you want.
Okay, gotcha.
Let me just move you to panelists here.
So this is how the email should look like.
Okay.
But like this button, which is good, but in the other emails, it's just like completely empty green button. And then let me show you which step.
But so this is a custom email that you're building, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like you just go up here. It's in my flows, and I can just show it to you. Right. T. So this is the step, and I just go in, and then it just sends an email. But the only
No.
thing is, it just doesn't like adds the button into it.
So where does the email body come from?
Right here. And I try to output everything that the assignment thing. So this is where we add the email template, and this is what it's doing, the acknowledged mailing.
And then, so where's that value? Where's the acknowledged mail link? There's a value into that assignment mail too?
Yes, we just use the
Okay.
inputs.
And where does the assignment mail to value come from?
That's in the template. So just you have the button, and then let me see. So right there, acknowledge mail link.
Right. And so the value that you pass into that is assignment mail to.
Yes.
And assignment mail to is an input to the flow.
Yes.
And where does that value get it? Like in the parent flow where it gets called from, where does that value come from?
Oh, we just name it.
No, I understand, but this is a subflow and a parent flow. So which means it's an input on the subflow step. So where does assignment mail to get its value from in the parent flow you just came from? Like if you close this and go back up one level. And then look at assignment. So entity mail to link. So I would think that data is null, and that's why it's not showing you anything. Are you sure that your entity mail to link has a value? That's where I would look.
So the scenario is that if they already have acknowledged it, and if you wanted to resend the email to the user, that's when it doesn't do it. But if it has never been like acknowledged, like if they have never been clicked on that button, it works fine if you do the resend. But if they ever have clicked on it and you're trying to send them the same email again, it doesn't do it.
Right, but you're trying to troubleshoot why it doesn't show up in this particular email.
Yes.
And the value that you get for that link comes from this property, entity.mail to link. So is it possible that it's just that property is null right now? Like when you run this action, so it just passes a null value in?
Gotcha. Yes, because it doesn't show anything. So should I just like output my assignment mail link? Because I tried to do that too, assignment mail to init, and it still didn't do it. Is there any way to make it not null?
Well, I would just I mean, that's probably a bigger question. I mean, it's like, are you setting a value in that property correctly in your flow?
Mhm.
Like, or if you could debug one of these and test it and see
Mhm.
if the value, or you could run a query and you could look in the database to confirm and see. But I would figure out if your mail to link value is null or not. That's where I would start looking.
Gotcha. Or is there any other way to just like run this template and then rather than setting up the whole task, as I try to do it in the other way where you just set up the whole task, but it wasn't going through the same ID. So for example, like on the dashboard, that same
Hmm.
raw that I wanted to resend the email for the user, it didn't do anything.
Like you should be able to debug if you like go back to the flow you were just in. Was that a configuration folder or just a regular subflow?
It's the configuration folder, so it's under the data structure right here.
Yeah, so go back in there and then go into your resend assignment email and then click debug.
Okay, and actually, let me just make sure it's gonna send it to somebody.
Well, we're not actually going to run it, but you can. I want to show you. You can get like a process ID and then try to debug it with that process ID.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah.
I'm still gonna put this in here just to be safe. They don't run this flow unless we manually run it. So just debug it
Hmm.
and run.
But like don't actually run it. No, but like on you can get the process folder ID or the case ID and put it in folder ID there on the top right hand corner, and then run it, debug it for a real process.
Oh, okay.
You can debug for a proper process here and then troubleshoot in your flow what's coming in null or what's not mapping correctly.
Gotcha. So I can just like, okay, that makes sense.
That might be the thing you're missing to try to track down why it's null. So what I would do is click into the process folder, steal the folder ID from the URL, come back here and then test it and see.
Gotcha. So for example, it's this request if I want it for this person.
Hmm.
And I can just go up here because they already have an ID here. And I can just use this ID or it has to be a different ID.
You just click into the click in, is it a folder? We might not want to do all of this with on the share, but that thing's a folder ID. So likely that's a process folder of some sort. And if you just need to go to manage, does it give you?
No,
It's
process
hidden.
detailed.
So I'm not sure what kind of data type that is, but you need to get the folder ID. It could be ID, sure. I just can't say with certainty. You could try it with ID and see if it works or not.
Gotcha, but it has to be the folder ID.
Correct, yeah.
Awesome.
Right.
Gotcha. And then I'll just input it here and then run capturing all.
Yeah, and just see if you can't figure out why it's being null.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. That helps a lot.
Okay, you bet.
Thank you.
All right, and Sabzas movement all back, and then I will allow Wade to go next here. What can I do for you, sir?
Hello, got a form, just a simple form. You just put in just text, and we were going to have it put in for just, I guess, a random customers on a website.
Okay.
So anybody could fill out this form.
Right.
And I set up what I thought I set up correctly. The guest user, I set it up as the guest and did all that. But once it's done, it goes to this page, this little box at the top that says task completed.
Yeah.
It says open in portal. Like, how do I basically get that to like a thank you page or whatnot?
You want to look at a step called an end form for that.
And
you can an end form will override that dialogue and then let you show like a thanks for your submission, somebody will follow up type thing. It's like a special type of form that doesn't, like a normal form holds the processing of the flow waiting for a user interaction. An end form just shows you a user interface and then lets the flow continue on.
Where in the flow do I put that? Is that or after my one, I guess, one and only form, do I put that in line right after, or is it in place of the end step?
You would put it right after the form submission,
Okay,
like your user form that these people are filling out, and then you'd put your end form immediately after, saying like,
Okay.
thank you for your submission, or whatever your thing is, right?
okay, got it. Yeah, that helps. So it just kind of interrupts that end step of, because I was like, they kept wanting to go to a portal. Like, I don't even want them to know a portal even exists.
Right,
For them
exactly.
to go to. Okay.
Yeah. The only thing I think I might recommend, Wade, is using a name session instead of guest. You don't need to leave everything open for a guest. We have a like a static authentication ID, and that called a name session that you can link to an account. You might find that that's a better pattern to use in the guest account. Ultimately, it would be the same thing. You'd have a URL which is like embedded on, or a link to it on a site. But you can, I would advise you to use name sessions instead of guest accounts. You have more
Oh, okay.
control over that
Yeah,
that
I
way.
use that for some internal stuff. That would kind of a back end API that's just going kind of back and
Right.
forth, like
Right.
one of our service ones. Okay, so I just need to use that same.
I would use
And
the
I
same
got- I-
pattern, maybe a different
Right.
account, lock it down so it only runs this one flow and can't do anything else, and can't use the portal and those sorts of things.
And I guess it's maybe just up to preference, but is there a guidance as far as like each individual form, or let's say that the survey would be its own named session, therefore named account, or would we just keep the same named session, named account for like 10 forms or whatnot?
Yeah, if you had like 10 external forms, right, that they were all hosted on a site that receive user interaction, you could have them all be run by one. There's no reason that you couldn't. You wouldn't want to mix like an internal permission with an external permission, just to keep it really clean and make sure everything's like siloed as much as possible.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, that helps a lot. I do have a second question, but I was going to leave it if everybody else is
please.
in order.
Please go ahead.
Kind of unrelated, but to the first one, but I'm trying to, specifically the inbox. I'm trying to display the inbox to in our ERP system.
Okay.
And the thought process was we would display that. I think I actually talked to you about it before on a separate call, if you remember. Displaying that inbox for our internal users inside our ERP, and doing it, I assume, within an iframe, so it can show the inbox number counter as it goes through, and the inbox itself. I tried doing that through a report, and put in an iframe, and the iframe just kept showing up blank, and I don't know.
You're probably dealing with some kind of like security issue, like we don't allow you to frame the app end by default. So likely what we need to do is get like Ryan or Neil. What we probably need is get Neil to get a call together so we can we can sort it out. Like there's some like web config changes we need to make to allow it, or some same site security stuff that we need to allow to let you iframe the site.
I have a call scheduled with him tomorrow at 10:30. So
yeah, I think that's definitely like a support type thing, like where that we can work together to allow either site by site, or allow all like iframing, and probably handle some same site stuff as well. Those are things that can make your iframing fail, and it's always tricky. It doesn't always fail in the same way, but that sounds like a security issue to me. There shouldn't be anything in app that you need to do specifically to get that to work.
Okay.
The only thing I would say is you probably should think about this not as directly embedding a report, but putting a page. So put your report on a page with a report viewer, and then embed your page in the iframe, because you might want tiles or other sort of like other things on that view other than just the report itself. And then using that page and report combination gives you more flexibility if you get user requests to add more or do more.
Okay.
It's not really different. It's just, you just put it just gives you some more flexibility.
Okay. Great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. All right, we have a question here from Anonymous. How to ignore report filter if user is admin? And what is the best practice for the assignment if assigned groups are different between environments and they are being created automatically from identity provider? How to ignore report filter if user is an admin? I mean, you could anonymous attendee, you could look at using a rule filter. Because that rule knows user context, but I wouldn't, they're very inefficient. If we were to just add an entity here, we have rule filters, and so you can write a rule. And I think in our rule, we should be able to get current user. So rule constant data initiating user groups list. But so I would, but it's not configurable. You can't get users to pass data into it. You could look at using like, a lot of what we see now is the service team in doing their implementations is they write completely custom like filter interfaces using like flow run parts. And then they build those with like send report parameter, I think. Send report, maybe just search for parameter. So set dashboard report parameters. And they pass those in so they can create like some very custom filtering user interfaces. You could use, if you use that pattern, then you could have the flow running this handle whatever you wanted. I think. So if your filter was show all if null, and you were using this pattern together, we should have some better docs about that. Kirsten, that's probably a place for us to our, big better examples conversation we were having with the doc team last week. I don't think we have a good doc about that, do we? I bet we don't. Parameter is going to be too broad. Filtering reports. Oh, okay. Look at me not believing. I need to believe more. So pages, okay. In addition to onboard filtration options. Well, I did believe in you until I read the word filtration. In addition to onboard filtration options available in report design, reports can be filtered using various page controls in conjunction with the report's runtime behavior. Such controls include, but are not limited to form tile or flow run part. Okay, so this is probably overly broad, but I think covers flow run part with the form and a drop-down list, and then set dashboard report parameters. Yeah, so this doc actually does walk through it. You could look at using this. So that might be the answer to your first question, Anonymous. What is the best practice for the assignment if assigned groups are different between environments and they are being created automatically from identity provider? You could use group names. I mean, you shouldn't. Where are you statically defining groups at? Right. That might be the question I'd ask you if I knew, if I knew your name. I would, it's hard, like, why are you statically assigning group IDs somewhere? Like, if you're doing it statically on an assignment, you could just use group names. Or you could replace that with just like a lookup logic that uses group name and returns UID so that it can be server specific instead of I'm assuming here, of course, that you're statically defining an ID. But this has like been an issue for time immemorial. In our project, in our product, right? Let's say I don't know what my group name is going to be in a higher environment. You don't know what your group name is going to be. Well, then how can you assign people to it? I'm not sure I understand well enough. So the group names are different between environment? That sounds highly non-standard for what we see. And you could keep some kind of centralized lookup data set where you where you could like always have group names mapped to some other group name or to a certain group ID. Like just some kind of, I guess, like a lookup list or something. I'm not sure I follow the use case exactly. But their group IDs have always been different between environments forever. No matter if it's a SSO or AD. The only time they haven't been is when using local accounts, and we have very few people using local accounts. So I'm not sure. It's a good question. I mean, it's a good question. But I would assume when you're designing the flow, you would know what the group of users is going to be. Or if you need to, you could just create some kind of lookup table to allow you to easily maintain that once you determine, you know, what the group is going to be when it gets created. What other questions do we have from anybody today? We're about at 12:30. A bunch of us have popped off after hopefully getting decent answers to the questions that they asked. Anybody else have anything for us today? Well, Alex, okay, what you got for us, sir?
Yeah, I got some, I think, simple stuff. I have 3 questions, but I can now only remember 2 of them.
All right, wonderful.
So
Save me from one.
Okay, so the selective update that you get in the database, you know, structure kind of stuff.
Okay.
What's the equivalent to that for like a flow data extension? Like,
Yeah.
is it a fetch entities mapping step and then a save entities kind of thing?
Yeah, it is. That's exactly what you have to do.
Okay, that's pretty easy. And the other one,
Mhm.
I can't find any. I'm looking for a property that would allow me to change kind of the orientation of the labels in a chart. Is that something that's doable?
Orientation of
like,
the labels.
Well, like right now they're all horizontal, and because of the size of them, they bump into each other.
Yeah, you could do this. There is like, let me create a report here. Let's go back to this report and we'll do like entity header. So we have a bunch of stuff. We'll do header. Oops. All right, maybe it's just entity data source. There we go. And then we'll do created on an entity name and then group on created on date. And then I'm going to add like a column chart maybe. Okay. Oh, that's okay. Maybe that's too bad. But you have on the in the report designer itself, you've got change label orientation.
Okay.
And then if you select that, you can do like 45. My example is not going to show this at all.
No,
Look at how terrible that looks. But we could do, maybe we could, why don't we do short? We could do short date. Maybe this will help. We could refresh. Oof. There's a lot of entities on this local database for some reason. All created on different dates. Maybe, how about this? We could do, we'll say the created on date is greater than or equal to, and I'll just do 90 days in the, I'll do, how about 180 days in the past? There you go. Now we can actually see it. So if I come back to my view, you'll see I can muck with the angle of these labels in this label angle value here.
Yeah, that's great. That's exactly what I was looking for. Okay, and in the interim, I've remembered the 3rd thing. So one of the things that I'm noticing, Will, is that you know, we were talking last week about you know, the query to find out about, you know, running flows and that sort of stuff.
Yes.
So I'm just noticing using that there's a bunch of stuff that is still kind of running, even though, you know, the flows have you know, been killed or were, you know, like what's the kind of the end game of this? Like, is there Like, do you basically have to go through these things trying to identify, what's happened and then right click and kill it to get rid of this thing? Or what is are there any, negative consequences to these flows that have no useful purpose running forever?
How do you know that they're running? What are you looking at to confirm that?
Well, I go into that, flow management thing there.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I go to the process folder, I
Okay.
get the flow tracking ID, and then I filter on the flow tracking ID, and I go into the management thing and I filter on that, and it shows me that there's still stuff there.
And you know that there shouldn't be?
Correct.
How do you know? Like, because the process is completed, it's hit its end step?
Well, the process has, yeah, so I mean, some of the things, and again, some of this is my fault because, in earlier iterations of my experience with managing these things, I might have just gone and set the process folder state to complete.
Right.
And then, as far as
Okay.
from a user interface point of view, everyone thinks it's complete, but in fact, there's still a flow that's,
Right.
and again, the reason that I'm marking it complete is because some problem has arisen with the flow. And most of this has had to do with, the issues that I've had with, the merge step. That,
Right.
basically dies in the middle of stuff. So manually I go and make changes so that everything looks as it should. But one of the things that, at the beginning I was unaware of was basically killing this thing. So, I mean, now I'm kind of looking at like, what are the consequences of this? Like, is this considered untidy? Like,
Mm.
should I run this query against all of the parent folders of all of my, kind of flow data extension folders to find out kind of what's still running and, and basically go in there and kill it all?
Possibly. Yeah, I mean, if you've got a bunch in this state that you can identify, then I think that clear flow data action on that report would use what you want. Because ultimately you have like two things. You've got like what you're looking at is like the in-memory kind of like key value pairs of stuff that we can derive into the process of the in-flight process, right? It's like this, it's the blob of the process of like it's the model plus the data. And then you have the actual data that process creates in, your custom or in the default databases, like in the folder table and the assignment table, in your execution extension table, or any place that it saves data to. And those are the things that matter. And so if you manually like forced closed it in some way, then, and it's just hanging out there, you can kill it without having any issues on the data side. And in fact, it'll help just keep your flow data, the table that we save all this stuff into is called flow data delta storage. It'll help you keep that flow data delta storage table as lean as it can be. That table cleans itself up when workflows hit their end step. So considering what you're saying, there is no possibility of this flow hitting its end step because no user will ever touch it again. So
right. Gotcha. Okay, perfect.
So I think, yeah, it should be safe to do. If you can clearly identify the ones that you've messed with in this particular way before.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can basically just look at the status in the process folder and find out those which if they should be complete, and then I take the tracking ID and I go in to the flow management area and find out that there's still something running, then that's a problem, right?
Right. Yep.
Because no one will ever, as you say, no one will ever visit this flow again.
Right.
Okay, perfect. Appreciate that.
You bet, sir. Happy to help. All right. Anybody else got anything for us? Going once, going twice. Just a few of us left in the room. So, all right. Thanks for the questions, everybody. Really appreciate everyone joining. And I will be here tomorrow. My thing was slightly incorrect. Wednesday is not going to be Sin. Wednesday will be our training manager, Jared Rodriguez. So just a quick editorial note there. All right. Thanks for the time and hope everyone has a great day. See ya.